The champagne flute trembled in my hand as I watched my husband Marcus wrap his arms around my mother on the living room screen. Not our living room, the one in our cabin, 2 hours north of the city, where I was supposed to be on a girls' weekend with my sister, except my sister Elena was sitting right next to me in my downtown loft. Her jaw hanging open as we both stared at my laptop screen. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. Isabelle. Elena started, but I held up my hand to silence her. The live stream was crystal clear. Marcus had forgotten, again, that our cabin's security system automatically streamed to my phone whenever motion was detected. A feature I'd installed after a break-in last summer. A feature he'd rolled his eyes at, calling it paranoid tech nonsense. On screen, my mother Vivian pressed herself against my husband of 6 years, her manicured fingers tangling in his dark hair. The same fingers that had helped me choose my wedding dress. The same man who'd kissed me goodbye this morning, telling me to have fun with Elena while he caught up on work at home. How long do you think this has been going on? Elena whispered, her voice barely audible over the sound of their passionate encounter echoing from my laptop speakers. I couldn't answer. My throat felt like I'd swallowed glass. But my mind was already calculating, remembering. All those times Mom had just stopped by when Marcus was homesick. The way she'd insisted on planning our anniversary dinner last month, choosing the restaurant, the wine, even my outfit. How she'd lingered after family dinners, always finding reasons to help Marcus clean up while I tucked our 4-year-old daughter Sophia into bed. Turn it off, Elena said, reaching for the laptop. No. My voice came out steadier than I felt. I need to see this. Because this wasn't just about betrayal. This was about evidence. And as the chief technology officer of Meridian Digital, a company neither Marcus nor my mother knew I owned, I understood the power of documentation. The live stream showed them moving to the kitchen now, my mother laughing at something Marcus said as he opened a bottle of wine. My wine. From the collection I'd been building since college, back when I was just Isabelle Chen, computer science student with big dreams and a tiny budget, before I became Belle Morrison, dutiful wife and mother who supposedly worked as a freelance web designer making modest income, before I built a digital empire worth $47 million under a carefully constructed web of LLCs and shell companies. Neither Marcus nor my mother had any idea that the quiet, unambitious woman they were betraying owned the company where Marcus worked as senior marketing director. Where he'd been promoted 3 times in 4 years, each advancement mysteriously coinciding with his excellent performance reviews that I'd personally ensured. Belle, we should call the police, Elena said, though we both knew this wasn't a criminal matter. Just a moral one. The police can't help with this, I replied, my fingers already moving across my phone screen. I opened the secure app that controlled our home's entire smart system. With a few taps, I activated every camera in the cabin. Living room, kitchen, bedroom, even the bathroom. If they were going to destroy my marriage and my home, I was going to have a complete record. On screen, Marcus was leading my mother toward the stairs. Toward the bedroom I'd decorated myself, where Sophia had been conceived, where I'd nursed her through countless sleepless nights while Marcus slept soundly beside us. How could she do this? Elena's voice cracked. She's your mother. She held Sophia when she was born. She's been planning this. The realization hit me like ice water. Look at her. She brought an overnight bag. Sure enough, there was my mother's distinctive Louis Vuitton weekend bag sitting by the front door. The one I'd bought her for Christmas 2 years ago, back when I still believed we were a happy family. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, like this video, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus, working late tonight, don't wait up. Love you. I showed Elena the screen. Her face went white. He's texting you while he's with her. I screenshot the message, adding it to a folder I'd just created. On my phone labeled evidence. My hands were surprisingly steady as I worked. Years of running board meetings and managing crisis situations had trained me well for compartmentalizing emotions. The live stream continued. They were in the bedroom now, and I finally had to look away. But I didn't turn off the recording. Every second was being automatically saved to secure servers that Marcus would never even know existed. What are you going to do? Elena asked. I closed the laptop but kept the recording running on my phone, then walked to my floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Down below, people were going about their Friday evening routines, completely unaware that my world was imploding 24 floors above them. I'm going to destroy them, I said quietly. Belle, I know you're hurt, but you don't understand. I turned to face my sister, and she took a step back at whatever she saw in my expression. I'm not just going to divorce him and cut off Mom. I'm going to systematically dismantle everything they think they have. Elena stared at me. What do you mean? I pulled up Marcus's employee profile on my phone, the one that showed his salary, his stock options, his performance bonuses. All approved by the anonymous CEO of Meridian Digital. All mine to give, and therefore mine to take away. Marcus thinks he's successful because he's talented. Mom thinks she's won some kind of prize by stealing my husband. They have no idea that everything Marcus has achieved professionally has been handed to him by the woman they're betraying. I scrolled through more files. My mother's finances, which I'd been helping with for years. The mortgage on her condo. That I'd been quietly paying through a shell company. The country club membership, the car lease, even her credit cards, all connected to accounts that traced back to me. You've been supporting her. Elena's voice was barely a whisper. Supporting? Both of them. Marcus makes good money at Meridian, but not enough for our lifestyle. The house, the cars, Sophia's private school, the cabin where they're currently destroying my marriage, it's all financed by my company. I pulled up another app, this one showing real-time financial data. With a few swipes, I could cut off every revenue stream they had. But that would be too quick, too merciful. I need to think strategically, I murmured, more to myself than to Elena. This requires precision. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Marcus, hope you and Elena are having fun. Miss you. I actually laughed, a sound so bitter it surprised us both. What's so funny? Elena asked. He doesn't know about the security cameras. Neither does she. They think they're having this passionate affair in secret, but I'm watching it happen in real time. I held up my phone, where the live stream showed them in my bed, using my sheets. They're not just cheating on me. They're performing for me. Elena sat down heavily on my leather couch. This is insane. How long have you been living this double life? Since before I met Marcus. Since Dad died and left us nothing but debt. I joined her on the couch, my mind racing through possibilities. I was 23, working 3 jobs to pay for Mom's medical bills after her accident. Remember? Elena nodded. Mom's car accident had left her with crushing medical debt and no ability to work for 2 years. I started Meridian Digital in our old apartment with $5,000 borrowed against my student loans. I told you I was freelancing, remember? Building websites for small businesses. But you were actually building an empire. Within 2 years, I had 12 employees. Within 4, we were handling digital marketing for Fortune 500 companies. But I kept living like I was still struggling because I'd learned that success makes you a target. I thought about the men who'd tried to date me in college, the ones who'd suddenly become interested when they heard about my internship at Microsoft. The friends who'd asked for loans they never intended to repay. The family members who'd started treating me differently once they suspected I was doing well. So when I met Marcus, I presented myself as Belle Chen, struggling web designer with big dreams and modest means. And he fell for that version of me. But you fell for him too, Elena said softly. I thought I did. But looking back, I think I fell for the idea of being normal. Of having someone love me for who I was, not what I had. I glanced at my phone, where the live stream showed them laughing about something. Turns out, he was just better at hiding his true motivations than the others. Elena was quiet for a long moment. What about Sophia? My daughter. My heart clenched at the thought of her innocent face, the way she lit up when Marcus came home from work, calling him Daddy, and running into his arms. She was spending the night at Elena's house, completely unaware that her world was about to change. Sophia is why I have to be careful, I said. This isn't just about revenge. I need to protect her future. I opened another app, this one showing my daughter's college fund, her trust account, the properties I'd bought in her name. Marcus had no idea that his 4-year-old daughter was already worth more than he'd make in a lifetime. I've been protecting her from this world, I continued. building her a fortress of financial security while letting her father believe he was providing for her. But now everything changes. I nodded, watching the timestamp on the live stream. They'd been in the bedroom for 43 minutes now. My mother had officially become the other woman, and my husband had officially become a stranger. Elena, I need you to do something for me. Anything. Take Sophia for the weekend. Maybe longer. Tell her I had to travel for work. Where are you going? I stood up, my decision crystallizing with perfect clarity. I'm going to let them finish their little romantic getaway. And then I'm going to start taking apart their lives piece by piece, exactly the way they just took apart mine. The live stream showed them getting dressed now, probably preparing for dinner. They looked happy. Satisfied. Like they'd gotten away with something. They had no idea that in trying to deceive me, they'd given me every tool I needed to destroy them. My phone buzzed with another message from Marcus, thinking of you. Can't wait to see you tomorrow. I smiled for the first time since the nightmare began. Tomorrow was going to be very interesting indeed. Saturday morning arrived with deceptive normalcy. I woke in my downtown loft, the city bustling below while my carefully constructed world lay in ruins. But as I made coffee and reviewed the overnight footage from the cabin, I felt something unexpected. Clarity. Marcus and my mother had given me a gift, though they'd never realize it. They'd shown me exactly who they were when they thought no one was watching. My secure phone buzzed at 7:23 a.m. A message from my Chief Operations Officer, David Park, the only person at Meridian Digital who knew my true identity. Weekend emergency. Etchen Holdings. The Singapore deal needs immediate attention. Can you take a call at noon? Perfect timing. I'd been looking for a reason to begin phase 1 of what I was already thinking of as Operation Reckoning. I replied, schedule a board meeting for Monday. Full restructure discussion. Also, I need complete background checks on 3 individuals. Sending files now. Within minutes, I'd transmitted everything: Marcus's employment records, his financial information, even his social media activity. My mother's files were thicker, years of documented financial dependency I'd never fully tallied. Until now, the third file was the one that would surprise David most. Elena's information. Because if I was going to systematically dismantle my old life, I needed to know who I could trust in my new one. My laptop chimed with an encrypted message. From David. Holy shit, Belle. Marcus Morrison is your husband? The one who keeps submitting those awful campaign proposals. I almost smiled. In the digital marketing world, Marcus was known for exactly what David described: flashy presentations with little substance. His continued employment at Meridian had been my doing. Overriding David's repeated suggestions to let him go was my husband. Past tense as of yesterday. How quickly can you compile a complete performance review? Give me 2 hours. But Belle, if you're thinking what I think you're thinking, I'm thinking much worse than whatever you're imagining. Get me everything. While I waited, I activated my other personas. Isabelle Chen had built an empire, but she'd done it through a network of identities and shell companies that would make the CIA proud. Today, I was going to use every single one. First call. Patricia Valdez, fictional senior partner at Kingston and Associates, the executive recruitment firm that had headhunted Marcus for Meridian 4 years ago. In reality, Patricia was me, speaking through a sophisticated voice modulation system I'd developed. Marcus Morrison, I said into the encrypted phone, my voice now carrying Patricia's slight Boston accent. I need to discuss his current position. Immediately. My assistant Chloe, who worked exclusively with the Patricia persona and had never met Isabella, responded immediately. Of course, Ms. Valdez. What's the situation? Confidential client evaluation. I need his complete professional network mapped by Monday morning. Every contact, every reference, every career connection. And Chloe? This is a termination assessment, not a placement opportunity. Understood. Anything else? Yes. I need you to research his wife. Isabella Morrison, maiden name Chen. Find out everything: education, career history, financial background. Everything. I disconnected, satisfied. By Monday, Marcus would discover that his professional reputation was quietly being demolished by forces he couldn't identify or combat. Next call. Victoria Sterling, property management executive for Sterling and Associates, the company that managed my mother's condo through a complex web of LLCs. Victoria had a British accent and a reputation for ruthless efficiency. She was also me, of course. Good morning, this is Victoria Sterling. I need to discuss the Vivian property immediately. My property management team, who only knew Victoria through phone calls and signed documents, connected me to the senior manager handling my mother's building. Miss Sterling, how can I help you? The Chin unit. Complete background verification needed immediately. Financial capability, references, the works. I'm concerned about irregularities in her payment history. This was completely fabricated. My mother's rent had been paid promptly every month for 4 years through automated transfers from one of my shell companies. But the investigation would uncover that fact, along with many others she'd prefer to keep private. Should we begin eviction proceedings if irregularities are found? Not yet. Just gather intelligence. I want to know everything about Ms. Chen's financial situation by Monday morning. 2 phone calls, and already the foundation of their comfortable lives was beginning to crack. My secure laptop chimed with David's preliminary report. What I read made my blood run cold, then hot with fury. Marcus hadn't just been coasting at Meridian Digital. He'd been actively undermining the company. 3 major clients had complained about his work over the past year. David had been quietly reassigning Marcus's projects to other team members, using discretionary budget increases I'd approved to cover the extra costs. The Singapore deal I was supposedly handling today? Marcus had nearly destroyed it with a presentation so culturally insensitive that our partners had threatened to walk away, but the worst discovery was in his email logs. My digital forensics team had found evidence that Marcus had been in contact with Titan Strategic, Meridian's biggest competitor. The exchanges were carefully worded, but the pattern was clear. Marcus had been feeding information to Titan for months, probably hoping to secure a better position there. He was trying to parlay his access to Meridian's strategies into a career upgrade. My hands were shaking as I scrolled through the evidence. Not from fear or sadness, but from pure rage. My husband hadn't just cheated on me with my mother. He'd been trying to sabotage the company I'd built from nothing. I called David directly. No personas needed for this conversation. How long have you known? I asked without preamble. Suspected for 2 months, confirmed it last week. I was going to bring it to you on Monday. Why didn't you fire him immediately? David's pause spoke volumes. Because he's your husband. I thought you might want to handle it personally. You were right. But not for the reasons you think. I pulled up Marcus's personnel file, noting his access levels, his project assignments, his security clearances. With a few keystrokes, I began dismantling his digital life at Meridian. First, his access to client files, revoked. His email account, flagged for monitoring. His current projects, quietly reassigned to other team members. By Monday morning, Marcus would arrive at work to find himself effectively neutered, though he wouldn't realize it immediately. But I wasn't done. I opened another application, this one controlling the financial accounts that paid for our lifestyle. The joint credit cards, the household expenses, even the cable bill, all funded by transfers from my various companies. With surgical precision, I began redirecting the money. The premium cable package Marcus loved for his sports channels? Cancelled. The country club membership where he played golf with potential clients? Payment suspended for account review. The lease on his BMW? I own the leasing company through a shell corporation. 1 phone call would have it repossessed, but again, I forced myself to move slowly. Patience was key. My phone rang. Marcus. Calling from the cabin. Hey babe, his voice was warm, loving, completely false. How's the sister weekend going? Great, I lied smoothly. Elena and I went shopping yesterday, watched movies. Very relaxing. Good, you deserve it. You work so hard with your little web design projects. My little web design projects. If he only knew those little projects funded his entire existence. What about you? Getting lots of work done? Oh yeah, totally productive. Caught up on some reports, did some strategic planning. Really focused, you know? Strategic planning. Is that what they were calling it? That's wonderful, honey. I can't wait to hear all about it when you get home. Actually, I might stay up here one more night. Really hitting my stride with this project. One more night with my mother in my bed. Of course, take all the time you need. Love you, Belle. Love you too. I disconnected and immediately checked the live stream. They were having breakfast on the deck, my mother wearing one of my robes, Marcus shirtless and relaxed. They looked like a couple on vacation, which, technically, they were. A vacation I was paying for. I opened my laptop and began typing an encrypted message to my legal team. Not the family lawyers Marcus knew about, but my corporate attorneys who'd been handling my business affairs for years, need complete marital asset analysis immediately. Also require consultation on custody arrangements for minor child. Assume hostile divorce proceedings with attempted asset seizure. Prepare full defensive strategy. Within an hour, I had a response. My assets were completely protected, Marcus had no legal claim to anything significant. The prenup he'd casually signed before our wedding, thinking it was just protecting his modest savings, had actually been a fortress built around my empire, but Sophia was different. Custody battles could get ugly, and I needed to be prepared. I called my sister. "How's my little angel?" I asked when Elena answered. "Sophia's great. We're making pancakes. She keeps asking when Daddy's coming home from his work trip." My heart clenched. "Elena, I need to ask you something important, and I need you to be completely honest." "Of course. How long have you suspected something was wrong with my marriage?" The pause told me everything. "Belle, how long?" "6 months, maybe more. The way Marcus looked at other women when you weren't watching. The way Mom always seemed to know his schedule better than you did. Little things that didn't make sense individually, but together. Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I hoped I was wrong. Because I know how much you love him. Because I thought maybe I was just being paranoid." I closed my eyes, processing this. Elena had seen the signs I'd missed, probably because I'd been too busy secretly managing Marcus's career to notice he was planning to leave it. "There's something else," Elena continued. "Last month at Sophia's birthday party, I saw Mom and Marcus exchange a look when you went inside to get the cake. It was intimate. Like they had a secret. They'd been planning this for months. While I was orchestrating Marcus's promotions and bonuses, they were orchestrating my betrayal. Elena, I need you to do something for me. Anything. Keep Sophia for the whole week. Tell her it's a special cousin adventure or something. And Elena? Don't answer any calls from Mom or Marcus without talking to me first." "Belle, what are you planning?" I looked at my laptop screen, where surveillance footage showed my husband and mother cuddled together on my couch, probably planning their future together. "I'm planning to give them exactly what they deserve." After hanging up, I made one final call of the morning. This one to myself, or rather, to another version of myself. Miranda Holdings answered my personal assistant Jennifer, who managed my real estate portfolio. "This is Miranda Chen," I said, using the persona that controlled most of my property investments. "I need to discuss the Morrison account." "Of course, Ms. Chen. Is there an issue?" "Major issue. I need a complete audit of all properties associated with Marcus Morrison, his wife Isabelle, and her mother Vivian Chen. Financial background, payment histories, market valuations. Everything. Should I prepare transfer documents?" I smiled grimly. "Not yet. But have them ready." By noon, I had compiled a complete dossier on the two people who thought they were deceiving me. Marcus's financial situation was entirely dependent on my covert support. My mother's comfortable lifestyle was funded by a daughter she was betraying. They thought they were having an affair. In reality, they were performing their own destruction for an audience of one. I poured myself a glass of wine, expensive Bordeaux. That Marcus had complimented me on buying, not knowing I owned the vineyard, and settled in to watch the next act of their unwitting performance. On my laptop screen, they were getting dressed for what looked like a romantic dinner. Marcus was wearing the watch I'd bought him for Christmas. My mother had chosen the earrings I'd given her for her birthday. They were celebrating their betrayal with my gifts, in my house, completely unaware that every moment was being documented and archived. My phone buzzed with another loving text from Marcus, "Missing you. Can't wait to hold you tomorrow night." I typed back, "Missing you too. I have so much to tell you when you get home." It wasn't a lie. I had more to tell him than he could possibly imagine. As the sun set over the city, I began planning Monday mornings. Revelations. Marcus would arrive at work to find his professional world quietly crumbling. My mother would discover that her financial security was built on sand, and I would begin the careful process of rebuilding my life without the people who'd Tried to destroy it. Phase 1 was complete. Phase 2 would begin at dawn, but first, I had a weekend to enjoy watching them dig their own graves, one loving gesture at a time. Monday morning brought the kind of crisp autumn air that promised change. I stood in my downtown office on the 42nd floor of the Meridian Tower, watching Marcus's BMW pull into the parking garage 24 floors below. He had no idea he was arriving at a building I owned, to work for a company I'd built, to face consequences I'd orchestrated. The weekend had been productive. While Marcus and my mother enjoyed their romantic getaway, I'd systematically begun dismantling the infrastructure of their comfortable lives. But today marked the beginning of Phase 2, active demolition. The board meeting is ready, David announced, entering my office with a tablet full of evidence. Every member has reviewed the Marcus Morrison file. They're impressed by your thoroughness. I turned from the window, straightening my charcoal Armani suit. Today, I needed to look like the CEO I'd always been, not the quiet wife I'd pretended to be. Impressed or horrified? Both. The corporate espionage evidence is damning. 3 board members want to involve the FBI. I shook my head. Not yet. Criminal charges would be too clean, too quick. I want him to understand exactly what he's lost before we destroy his future. David raised an eyebrow. This is personal. This is justice. There's a difference. My secure phone buzzed with an update from the surveillance team. Marcus had just badged into the building, completely unaware that his access levels had been quietly downgraded over the weekend. He could enter the lobby and elevator, but his keycard would no longer open most doors. Showtime, I murmured, activating the live security feed on my monitor. I watched Marcus stride through the lobby with his usual confident swagger, nodding to security guards who knew him as a rising star in the company. If only they knew the truth. The elevator carried him to the 17th floor, where his corner office waited. Or rather, where his former corner office waited. Over the weekend, my facilities team had quietly relocated his belongings to a smaller interior space, citing departmental restructuring. Through the security cameras, I watched his face change as he discovered the switch. Confusion first, then irritation as he knocked on his assistant Sarah's door. Sarah, what's going on with my office? Oh, Mr. Morrison. I meant to email you. Facilities said there was a reorganization over the weekend. Something about optimizing space utilization. I smiled, remembering the memo I'd approved under my Patricia Valdez persona. Sarah had no idea the facilities directive had come from the building's ultimate owner. Marcus was pulling out his phone now, probably to call his department head. I switched to another camera angle as he tried to access the client database. From his computer, access denied. His frown deepened as he tried again, then called IT support. Within minutes, a technician appeared at his desk. One of my people, briefed on the morning's theater. System update over the weekend, Mr. Morrison. Your new access levels should be active within the hour. They wouldn't be, of course. Marcus's ability to access sensitive client information had been permanently revoked. But he wouldn't realize that immediately. Ms. Chen, David interrupted my surveillance. We have a problem. I turned from the monitor. What kind of problem? Vivian Chen just arrived in the lobby. She's asking to see you. My blood went cold. My mother was here, at Meridian Digital, asking for Isabelle Chen. The 2 parts of my carefully compartmentalized life were about to collide. How does she even know where to find me? David pulled up the visitor log on his tablet. She told security she's your mother and needs to discuss a family emergency. They're holding her in the lobby pending your approval. I activated the lobby camera feed. There was my mother, looking elegant and composed in a navy dress I'd bought her last Christmas. She was speaking to the security guard with that charming smile she'd perfected over the years, the same smile she'd worn while seducing my husband in my bed. Bring her up, I decided. But first, clear the hallway between the elevator and my office. I don't want any employees to witness this conversation. David nodded and began typing rapid instructions. Within minutes, the 42nd floor was strategically emptied, my staff relocated to conference rooms and alternate workspaces. I had exactly 7 minutes to prepare for a confrontation I'd never anticipated. My hands were surprisingly steady. As I opened the secret panel behind my desk, revealing a hidden safe containing documents my mother had never seen. Financial records showing every payment I'd made on her behalf. Bank statements proving I'd been supporting her lifestyle for years. Medical bills from her accident that I'd quietly absorbed, evidence of a daughter's love that had been repaid with the ultimate betrayal. The elevator chimed, and I heard my mother's heels clicking against the marble floor. David appeared in my doorway, his expression carefully neutral. "Mrs. Chen to see you." "Send her in." My mother entered with the confidence of someone accustomed to getting her way. She paused at the threshold, taking in my office with obvious surprise. The floor-to-ceiling windows, the custom furniture, the wall of awards and recognition plaques. "Isabelle?" Her voice carried a note of uncertainty. "This is your office? Sit down, Mom." She approached slowly, her eyes cataloging details. The original Monet on the wall. The handcrafted desk from Italy. The view of the entire city spread out below us. "I don't understand. You said you worked in web design. Freelance work from home." I said many things. Most of them were lies designed to protect you from a truth you weren't ready to handle. My mother sank into the leather chair across from my desk, her composure finally cracking. "Protect me from what?" I opened my laptop and turned it toward her. On the screen was a live feed from the cabin, showing the bedroom where she and Marcus had spent the weekend. Her face went white. "From the knowledge that your daughter sees everything." The silence stretched between us like a chasm. My mother's eyes darted from the screen to my face, then to the documents spread across my desk. "How long have you known about the affair?" "Since Friday night." "About your financial situation?" "For years." I pulled out a thick folder. "Did you think I didn't notice, Mom? The mortgage payments that suddenly became manageable after your accident? The credit card bills that mysteriously disappeared? The country club membership you couldn't possibly afford on disability payments?" Her hands were shaking now. "Isabelle, I can explain, can you? Can you explain why you seduced my husband in my house, in my bed, using money I provided to fund your lifestyle? It wasn't supposed to happen." Her voice was barely a whisper. "Marcus was so unhappy, and you were always busy with work, and stop." I stood, my chair rolling back with sharp precision. "Don't you dare make this about my failures as a wife. Don't you dare suggest that I drove my husband into your arms by working too hard to support both of you." I moved to the window, needing distance from her presence. Below, the city hummed with activity. People going about their lives, unaware that mine was being dissected piece by piece in a glass tower above them. "Mom, do you want to know what your daughter actually does for a living?" She nodded mutely. "I own this building. I own the company where Marcus works. I own the real estate firm that manages your condo, the investment group that pays your medical expenses, even the country club where you play tennis twice a week." I turned to face her. "Everything you have, everything Marcus thinks he's earned, everything you believe makes you independent, it all comes from me." The color drained from her face completely. "That's impossible." "Is it? Look around, Mom. This isn't the office of a struggling freelancer." I pressed a button on my desk phone. "David, please bring me the Vivian financial file." Within moments, my COO appeared with a thick binder. He placed it on my desk and withdrew without a word. 12 years, I said, opening the file. 12 years of supporting you through shell companies and anonymous transfers. Your rent, your car payments, your medical insurance, even your grocery delivery service. All of it traced back to companies I own." My mother leaned forward, scanning the documents with growing horror. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I wanted you to feel independent. Because I thought if you knew your daughter was successful, you'd either become dependent or resentful. Because I loved you and wanted to protect your dignity." I laughed bitterly. "Ironic, isn't it? I was so concerned about protecting your dignity that I never considered you might choose to destroy it yourself." "Isabelle, please. Let me explain about Marcus." "There's nothing to explain. I watched it happen. I have it all recorded." I closed the laptop with a sharp snap. "The question now is what we do next." My mother straightened in her chair, and for a moment I saw a flash of the woman who'd raised me. Strong, determined, unwilling to back down. "What do you want from me?" "I want you to understand the choice you've made. You chose my husband over your daughter. You chose temporary pleasure over permanent family. You chose to destroy the relationship with the person who has been quietly supporting your entire life. For over a decade." I returned to my desk, pulling out a manila envelope I'd prepared over the weekend. This contains documentation of every payment I've made on your behalf since your accident. The total is just over $300,000. Not including the condo down payment, which brings it to nearly $500,000. Her face went ashen. You kept track? I keep track of everything, Mom. It's how I built an empire while you thought I was struggling to make ends meet. I slid the envelope across the desk. Inside, you'll also find termination notices for all the accounts and services I've been providing. Your rent will be due in full starting next month. Your credit cards have been canceled. Your country club membership expires at the end of the week. You can't, I can, and I have. You made your choice. Now live with the consequences. My mother stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. You're destroying my life over a mistake. I'm not destroying anything. I'm simply stopping the protection I was providing. If your life falls apart without my support, that tells you something about the life you were actually living. She moved toward the door, then turned back. What about Marcus? What about him? Are you going to destroy his life too? I smiled. And she took a step back at whatever she saw in my expression. Mom, I'm not going to destroy Marcus's life. I'm going to let him discover that the life he thought he had never actually existed. After she left, I sat in the silence of my office, processing what had just happened. Confronting my mother hadn't brought the satisfaction I'd expected. Instead, I felt hollow, empty of everything except cold determination. My secure phone buzzed. With an update from the surveillance team. Marcus was having lunch with someone from Titan Strategic. They were meeting at an expensive restaurant downtown, one Marcus couldn't actually afford on his real salary. I pulled up the live feed from the restaurant. Yes, I had cameras there too, a remnant from a corporate espionage case we'd handled 2 years ago. Marcus was gesturing animatedly, clearly trying to impress his potential new employer. He had no idea that by this afternoon, his value proposition would evaporate entirely. I called David. It's time for the departmental meeting. You're sure about this? Absolutely certain. 20 minutes later, I was sitting in conference room B on the 17th floor, surrounded by Marcus's colleagues. To them, I was still Isabelle Chen, mysterious consultant who occasionally appeared for high-level strategic discussions. Marcus wasn't present. He was still at his lunch meeting, probably negotiating his exit strategy from a company he thought he understood. Ladies and gentlemen, I began, we've discovered a significant security breach in our operations. Someone has been passing confidential information to our competitors. The room went silent. These were good people, hardworking employees who believed in the company's mission. The idea of betrayal from within was devastating to them. I continued, we've identified the source and will be taking immediate action. However, I want everyone to understand that this incident reflects the actions of one individual, not a systemic problem. Sarah, Marcus's assistant, raised her hand tentatively. Is it someone in our department? I'm afraid so. The investigation is ongoing, but we have sufficient evidence to proceed with termination. I looked around the room, making eye contact with each person. These were Marcus's colleagues, people who'd worked alongside him for years. Some of them probably considered him a friend. The individual in question has been systematically undermining our client relationships and sharing proprietary information with Titan Strategic. The damage assessment is still ongoing, but it's substantial. A murmur of shock rippled through the room. Everyone knew about the competitive tension with Titan. The idea that someone had been actively helping them was almost incomprehensible. Who is it? Asked James from account management. I paused, letting the moment build. Marcus Morrison. The silence that followed was deafening. Sarah's face went white. 2 people actually gasped. That's impossible, Sarah stammered. Marcus would never. I understand this is difficult to accept. Marcus has been skillful at maintaining his facade. But the evidence is overwhelming. I activated the conference room's display screen, showing excerpts from Marcus's email communications with Titan Strategic. Nothing that would compromise our legal case, but enough to demonstrate the pattern of betrayal. He's been sharing client information, strategic plans, even our merger discussions. The Singapore deal nearly collapsed because Titan knew our negotiating position in advance. The room was absorbing this information with visible shock. These People had trusted Marcus, worked with him daily, celebrated his successes. "What happens now?" asked Jennifer from Creative Services. "Mr. Morrison will be terminated immediately upon his return to the office. Security will escort him from the building, and all his access privileges have been revoked. We're also pursuing legal action for corporate espionage and breach of fiduciary duty." I closed the presentation and stood. "I know this is a lot to process. Please take the rest of the day to absorb this information. Tomorrow, we'll begin rebuilding what was damaged." As I left the conference room, I could hear the whispered conversations beginning. By the time Marcus returned from his lunch meeting, every employee on the floor would know about his betrayal. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. "Great meeting. Things are looking up. Can't wait to tell you about it tonight." I replied, "I can't wait either. We have so much to discuss." It wasn't a lie. We did have much to discuss, starting with the fact that in approximately 2 hours, he would no longer have a job, a career, or a future in the industry he'd tried to betray. Phase 2 was complete. The web was tightening. Phase 3 would begin the moment he walked through the office doors. Marcus returned to the office at 2:47 p.m., his stride confident as he walked through the lobby toward the elevators. I watched him through the security cameras, noting the satisfied smile on his face. His lunch meeting with Titan Strategic had obviously gone well. He had no idea he was walking into his own execution. I remained in my office on the 42nd floor, monitoring multiple feeds as Marcus made his way to the 17th floor. David stood beside me, tablet in hand, coordinating the carefully orchestrated sequence of events about to unfold. "Security is in position," David reported. "HR has the termination documents ready. Legal has the cease and desist orders prepared." "And the surprise guest?" David checked his phone. "Arriving in 10 minutes. The surprise guest was Detective Rachel Torres from the Economic Crimes Unit. I'd met her during a previous corporate investigation, and she'd agreed to consult on Marcus's case. While I didn't want him arrested immediately, I did want him to understand the criminal implications of his actions. On the security feed, Marcus was approaching his relocated office. His expression shifted from confusion to irritation as he saw the interior space instead of his former corner office, but that was nothing compared to what awaited him inside. Sarah, his assistant, was standing beside his desk with red-rimmed eyes. She'd been crying since the departmental meeting, devastated by the revelation of Marcus's betrayal. Behind her stood James Peterson, the head of human resources, holding a manila folder. "Marcus," Sarah said, her voice barely controlled. "We need to talk." I switched to the audio feed as Marcus entered his office, still oblivious to the storm about to break over him. "What's wrong? You look upset." James stepped forward. "Please sit down, Marcus. We have some serious matters to discuss." "Is this about the office reassignment?" "Because I was going to talk to facilities about that." "It's not about your office," James interrupted. "It's about your employment with Meridian Digital." I watched Marcus's face change as the gravity of the situation began to dawn on him. He remained standing, his lawyer instincts kicking in. "What's this about?" James opened the folder. "We've discovered that you've been sharing confidential company information with Titan Strategic. We have documented evidence of corporate espionage spanning the last 6 months." The color drained from Marcus's face. "That's ridiculous. I would never." "We have your email communications," James continued calmly. "Meeting records, phone logs, even surveillance footage of you passing documents to their representatives." Marcus sank into his chair, his confident facade crumbling. "I can explain, no explanation necessary. Your employment is terminated immediately, effective now. Security will escort you from the building." 2 security guards appeared in the doorway as if summoned. Marcus looked between them and James, his mind clearly racing. "You can't do this. I have rights. I demand to speak to my lawyer." "You're free to contact your lawyer," James replied. "But your access to company property and information ends right now." I watched as the security guard stepped forward, flanking Marcus's desk. He was trapped, surrounded, with nowhere to run. "I want to speak to Isabelle Chen," Marcus said suddenly. "She's the consultant who's been handling the Singapore account. She'll vouch for my work." My heart rate spiked. Even in his desperation, Marcus was trying to drag me into his mess. He had no idea he was asking to speak to his wife. James looked genuinely puzzled. Mr. Morrison, I think you're confused about the corporate structure here. No, I'm not confused. Isabella Chen. She's been working on the strategic initiatives. She has an office upstairs somewhere. This was the moment I'd been dreading and anticipating in equal measure. The collision of my two identities, witnessed by people who knew Marcus but had never met Belle Morrison. I made a decision that surprised even me. David, I said, have James bring Marcus to my office. Are you sure? It's time. 5 minutes later, I heard the elevator chime and the sound of multiple footsteps in the hallway. I stood behind my desk, hands clasped behind my back, staring out at the city below. Miss Chen. James's voice came from the doorway. Marcus Morrison insisted on speaking with you. Send him in. Alone. I heard shuffling, whispered protests, and then the sound of the door closing. Marcus was alone in my office, probably looking around at the executive suite he'd never seen before. Isabella? His voice was uncertain, confused. I turned slowly to face him. The shock on his face was everything I'd imagined and more. His mouth fell open, his eyes widened, and he actually staggered backward a step. Belle? What, how are you? Hello, Marcus. He looked around my office wildly, taking in the executive furniture, the awards on the walls, the view of the entire city. His gaze landed on my desk, where his termination documents lay open. I don't understand. What are you doing here? I work here. But you do web design. From home? Small projects. I walked around my desk, moving closer to him. He backed away instinctively. Marcus, meet Isabella Chen, founder and CEO of Meridian Digital. Your boss for the past 4 years. The person who approved your hiring, your promotions, your salary increases, and now your termination. He shook his head violently. That's impossible. You're my wife. You work from home. You make maybe $30,000 a year. I make $30,000 in approximately 6 hours, I corrected. On a slow day. I moved to the wall where my MBA from Stanford hung alongside various industry awards. Marcus followed my movement with his eyes, his face pale and sweating. You've been living a lie, Marcus. But not the lie you think. This is insane. You can't be. This is some kind of setup. I pressed a button on my desk phone. David, please. Bring the Marcus Morrison employment file. Within seconds, David appeared with a thick folder. He placed it on my desk and withdrew, giving Marcus a look of professional disgust. Your complete employment history, I said, opening the file. Hired 4 years ago at Isabella Chen's personal recommendation. 3 promotions, all approved by Isabella Chen. Multiple poor performance reviews overlooked by Isabella Chen. And now, terminated for corporate espionage by Isabella Chen. Marcus sank into the chair across from my desk, his head in his hands. The consultant work was fake. The consultant work was real. I am Isabella Chen, consultant. I'm also Isabella Chen, CEO. I'm also Belle Morrison, your wife. Or rather, I was your wife until Friday night. His head snapped up. Friday night? I opened my laptop and turned it toward him. The screen showed security footage from our cabin. Specifically the bedroom where he and my mother had spent the weekend. Marcus went white as a sheet. How did you? Security cameras, Marcus. Motion activated, cloud stored, legally admissible in court. I watched the entire thing in real time. He stared at the screen in horror. Belle, I can explain, can you? Can you explain why you were selling company secrets to our competitors while sleeping with my mother in my bed? It wasn't supposed to happen. Either of them. The Titan thing was just. I was exploring options. And Vivian, she was so lonely. And you were always working. I was always working to pay for your life. I slammed my hand on the desk, and he flinched. Your salary couldn't cover our mortgage, Marcus. It couldn't pay for Sophia's school, or your car, or our vacations, or any of the lifestyle you've been bragging about to your friends. I opened another file on my laptop, showing our household finances. Every month, I transferred money from my various companies to cover our expenses. The shortfall between your actual income and our actual costs was about $8,000 monthly. Marcus stared at the numbers in shock. You were supporting us? I was supporting you. I was supporting my mother. I was supporting everyone. while pretending to struggle so you could feel like the successful provider. I stood and walked to the window again, needing space from his presence. Do you know what's truly pathetic, Marcus? I could have fired you years ago. Your work has been mediocre at best. But I kept protecting you, promoting you, making excuses for you because I thought I loved you. You do love me. We can work this out. The Vivian thing was a mistake, the Vivian thing was a choice. A choice you made repeatedly over several months while lying to my face every single day. I turned back to face him. But that's not even the worst part. The worst part is that you were trying to destroy the company that was supporting your entire existence. You were literally biting the hand that fed you. Marcus stood up shakily. Belle, please. Think about Sophia. We can get counseling. We can work through this. Sophia is exactly who I'm thinking about. She deserves better than a father who commits corporate espionage and a grandmother who seduces married men. My desk phone buzzed. Miss Chen, Detective Torres is here. Marcus went rigid. Detective? Come in, I called. Detective Rachel Torres entered my office in her standard-issue blazer, badge visible on her belt. She was a stern-looking woman in her 40s with the kind of presence that commanded respect. Mr. Morrison, she said, nodding to Marcus. I'm Detective Torres, Economic Crimes Unit. I understand you've been terminated for corporate espionage. Marcus looked between the detective and me, panic rising in his eyes. This is harassment. I want my lawyer. You're free to call your lawyer. Detective Torres replied calmly. But first, I need to inform you that the district attorney's office is reviewing this case for potential criminal charges. Corporate espionage is a felony in this state, carrying penalties of up to 10 years in prison. Marcus's legs gave out, and he collapsed back into his chair. However, the detective continued, Miss Chen has indicated she might be willing to resolve this matter civilly, depending on your cooperation. Marcus looked at me with desperate eyes. What do you want? I sat back down behind my desk, assuming the position of power that was rightfully mine. I want you to understand what you've lost. You had a wife who loved you enough to secretly fund your success. You had a daughter who worshipped you. You had a career that was protected and advanced by someone who cared about your future. I opened the final folder on my desk. And now you have none of those things. Your career in this industry is over. I'll make sure every company knows about your corporate espionage. Your marriage is over. Your relationship with our daughter will be supervised and limited. Marcus was crying now, tears streaming down his face. Belle, please, my name is Isabella. Belle Morrison died on Friday night when you chose my mother over your family. I stood and walked to my office door, opening it. Security will escort you from the building. Your personal belongings will be delivered to your mother's house, where I assume you'll be living since the house you thought was ours actually belongs to one of my shell companies. What about Sophia? Sophia will be fine. She has a trust fund worth more than you'll make in your lifetime, assuming you ever work again. She also has a mother who built an empire while you thought she was struggling with web design. Marcus stood on unsteady legs, looking around my office one last time. How long have you been living this double life? Since before I met you. The question you should be asking is how long you've been living a fantasy funded by the woman you were betraying. Detective Torres stepped forward. Mr. Morrison, you'll be hearing from the DA's office within the week. I strongly suggest you retain counsel. As security escorted Marcus from my office, I felt a complex mix of emotions. Relief, vindication, sadness, and something else, a sense of freedom I hadn't felt in years. I was no longer Belle Morrison, the struggling wife who needed protection. I was Isabella Chen, CEO, empire builder, and finally, completely myself. David entered my office after Marcus left. How do you feel? Like I can finally breathe, I replied. Phase 3 complete? Phase 3 complete. Though I have to ask, what's Phase 4? I smiled, looking out at the city that held my enemies and my empire in equal measure. Phase 4 is rebuilding. But first, we have one more revelation to orchestrate. Which is? Marcus still doesn't know that my mother is about to lose everything, too. And she doesn't know that her lover just lost his career. I picked up my phone, scrolling to a contact I hadn't used in years. It's time to arrange a family reunion. The family reunion I'd orchestrated was set for Wednesday evening at 7 p.m., in the penthouse conference room of the Meridian Tower. Neither Marcus nor my mother knew the other would be there. Neither knew I'd discovered their affair. And most importantly, neither knew about the complete financial devastation I'd unleashed over the past 72 hours. I arrived early, positioning myself at the head of the mahogany conference table with the city skyline as my backdrop. The setting was deliberately intimidating. This was where billion-dollar deals were negotiated and corporate empires rose or fell. Tonight, it would be the latter. David entered first, carrying a leather portfolio thick with documentation. Behind him came Detective Torres, who'd agreed to observe from the adjoining room through the one-way glass. If things went badly, I wanted a witness. The surveillance equipment is active, David reported, testing the discrete cameras positioned around the room. Everything will be recorded in 4K with perfect audio quality. I nodded, adjusting my black Valentino suit. Tonight's armor needed to project absolute authority. And their current status? Marcus is staying at his mother's house in Queens. His credit cards were declined at 3 different establishments yesterday. Your mother tried to access her country club this morning and was informed her membership had been terminated. Good. They're both feeling the pressure, but they haven't connected the dots yet. David checked his watch. Your mother arrives first in 10 minutes. Marcus 15 minutes after that. I opened the portfolio, reviewing the evidence one final time. Financial records, surveillance footage, corporate espionage documentation, and most damning of all, recorded phone conversations between Marcus and my mother planning their future together. My digital surveillance team had been busy. Every call, every text, every email between them over the past 6 months had been captured and analyzed. The picture that emerged was devastating. This wasn't a crime of passion, but a calculated scheme to eliminate me from their lives while keeping my financial support flowing. The elevator chimed, and I heard familiar footsteps in the corridor. Send her in, I instructed David, who withdrew to the observation room. My mother entered wearing the cream-colored Chanel suit I'd bought her for her 60th birthday. Her makeup was perfect, her posture confident, but I could see the stress lines around her eyes that hadn't been there a week ago. Isabelle, she said, taking in the imposing conference room. This is quite dramatic, even for you. Please, sit. She chose a chair halfway down the table, maintaining distance but not cowering. I'd always admired her strength, even when it was being used against me. I assume this is about our conversation on Monday. Partially. I opened my laptop, displaying a financial summary on the wall-mounted screen. This is a complete accounting of every dollar I've spent supporting your lifestyle over the past 12 years. The total is $847,000. My mother's composure wavered slightly. You didn't need to, you're right. I didn't need to. I chose to. Because I believed family meant something to you. I clicked to the next slide, showing her current financial status. 0 available credit, rent due in 2 weeks, car payments overdue. As of Monday, all support has been terminated. Your true economic situation is now fully exposed. Isabelle, you're punishing me for being human. For making a mistake. A mistake? I stood, moving to the window. Mother, I have 6 months of recorded phone conversations between you and Marcus. This wasn't a mistake. It was a campaign. I activated the audio system, and my mother's voice filled the room. She has no idea how much money she actually makes. The little web design thing is just for show. We could have a real life together, Marcus. A life without having to pretend she's struggling. The color drained from her face as her own words condemned her. You knew, I said quietly. You've known about my real career for months, haven't you? She nodded mutely. Then you also know that everything you've said about me being too busy, too focused on work, too absent from my marriage, all of it was lies designed to justify stealing my husband. I played another recording. Once she finds out about us, she'll be so devastated she won't even fight the divorce. We can probably get half of everything she owns. Maybe more if we play it right. My mother buried her face in her hands. Isabelle, please stop. Why? Because it's painful to hear your own plotting played back to you? Because you're embarrassed by your greed? The elevator chimed again. Marcus had arrived. Actually, let's hear what your lover thinks about your situation. Marcus entered looking haggard and desperate. His expensive suits had been replaced by a wrinkled button-down and khakis. The confident man I'd married was gone, replaced by someone who looked like he hadn't slept in days. He stopped dead when he saw my mother. "Vivian? What are you doing here?" "Marcus," she breathed, her face pale. "Isabelle knows everything." Marcus looked between us, his face cycling through confusion, fear, and finally resignation. "How much does she know?" "Everything," I replied, advancing another slide on the presentation. "The affair, the financial planning, even your touching discussions about what kind of house you'd buy with my money after I was eliminated from the picture." Marcus sank into a chair across from my mother, the full scope of his exposure finally hitting him. "Please, let me play you my personal favorite," I said, clicking to a new audio file. Marcus's voice echoed through the room. "The beauty is that she's been so focused on that little consulting business, she has no idea what real money looks like. When we're together, we can actually live like wealthy people should." "Consulting business," I repeated. "Marcus, you worked for my consulting business. You were employed by the woman you were planning to defraud." I moved to stand between them, forcing them to look up at me. "But here's what fascinates me most about your planning. You were right about one thing: I don't know what it's like to live like wealthy people should. Because I've been too busy actually earning wealth to spend time flaunting it." I clicked to the next slide, my actual net worth, displayed in stark black numbers. Both of them stared at the screen in shock. $47 million, I said calmly. "Not including real estate holdings, which would bring it closer to 60 million. Marcus made a strangled sound. "That's impossible." "Is it? You worked for Meridian Digital for 4 years. Did you ever wonder why a mid-sized consulting firm occupied an entire 40-story building? Did you ever question why we had offices in 12 countries? Did you ever consider what kind of revenue stream supports that infrastructure?" I opened another file on my laptop. Meridian Digital has 847 employees worldwide. Annual revenue last year was $124 million. Net profit was $31 million. And I own 94% of the company. My mother was staring at me as if seeing me for the first time. "You're actually wealthy." "I'm actually rich, Mother. There's a difference. Wealthy people have money. Rich people have power." I pressed a button on the conference table, and David entered carrying 2 thick manila envelopes. "These contain the legal documents you'll both be signing tonight." Marcus reached for his envelope with shaking hands. "What kind of documents?" "Non-disclosure agreements, first and foremost. You will never discuss my true identity, my company's, or my financial status with anyone. Violation carries a penalty of $10 million. I moved to the window, looking out at the city lights. "Second, you'll find complete financial releases. Marcus, you waive any claim to marital assets, spousal support, or custody rights beyond supervised visitation. You can't take Sophia away from me." "I'm not taking her away. I'm protecting her from a father who commits corporate espionage and a grandmother who seduces married men. The supervised visitation is actually generous, considering." My mother opened her envelope, scanning the documents. "What about me?" "You're signing an acknowledgement of the $847,000 debt you owe me, along with a repayment schedule. 50 years at current interest rates should cover it." She looked up sharply. 50 years? I'll be dead before I pay that off. "Then I suggest you find a way to live longer. Or earn more money. I hear there are positions available in retail that don't require extensive background checks." Marcus was flipping through his documents frantically. "This is extortion." "No, this is consequences. Extortion would be if I threatened to expose your affair unless you paid me. Instead, I'm offering you a choice: sign these documents and disappear from my life quietly, or face criminal charges for corporate espionage plus a very public divorce. Trial where every detail of your betrayal becomes court record." I sat back down at the head of the table, the city skyline framing me like a throne. "Oh, and Marcus? That house you thought we owned together? It belongs to Chen Holdings, one of my shell companies. You have until Friday to remove your belongings." "Where am I supposed to live?" "I understand your mother has a basement apartment. Though given your current financial situation, you might want to start looking for roommates." My mother was staring at her repayment schedule. "This is impossible. I can't possibly earn enough to make these payments." Then you'll need to downsize your lifestyle dramatically. I suggest you start by selling the jewelry I bought you over the years. The tennis bracelet alone should cover 6 months of payments. I stood, smoothing my skirt. You have 20 minutes to review the documents and make your decision. Sign them, and this ends quietly. Refuse, and I trigger a sequence of events that will destroy both of you publicly and completely. What if we expose you? Marcus asked. Desperately. What if we tell everyone the truth about your money? I smiled coldly. Tell them what? That the woman you betrayed is successful? That you were too stupid to recognize your wife's achievements? That you tried to defraud someone who was secretly supporting your entire existence? I walked to the door, then turned back. Marcus, you worked in marketing. How do you think that story plays in the media? Cheating husband didn't know wife was secret CEO. You become a laughingstock. I become a sympathetic figure. David re-entered the room, carrying a tablet. Miss Chen, I have the final surveillance report. Share it with them. They should understand the complete scope of what we know. David activated the wall screen, displaying a timeline of their affair. Photos, recordings, financial transactions, meeting locations, 6 months of deception mapped out in forensic detail. We know about the hotel rooms you paid for with company credit cards, Marcus. We know about the shopping trips funded by your mother's trust account, Vivian. We know about your plans to elope to Costa Rica once the divorce was finalized. My mother gasped. How did you? Because I know everything. I always have. The only difference is that now you know I know. I checked my watch. 15 minutes remaining. I suggest you start signing. Marcus picked up a pen with trembling hands. If I sign this, what happens to us? You disappear from my life. You become strangers who happen to know me once. You fade into irrelevance while I continue building an empire you were never worthy of sharing. My mother was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. Isabelle, I raised you. I'm your mother. You were my mother. Past tense. Mothers don't steal their daughters' husbands while plotting to rob them blind. I moved toward the door. 10 minutes. David will witness your signatures and notarize the documents. After that, you both leave this building and never contact me again. What about Sophia? My mother asked. Sophia will grow up knowing her mother is strong enough to protect her from people who would use her for their own gain. She'll learn that success requires integrity, and that family means loyalty. I paused at the threshold. She'll also learn that some people are worth fighting for, and others are worth fighting against. Today, you both discovered which category you belong in. As I left them to their signatures and their shame, I felt the final pieces of my old life falling away. Belle Morrison, the struggling wife and dutiful daughter, was truly dead. Isabella Chen, empire builder and protector of her child's future, was finally free to live completely in the light. The war was over. I had won, but victory, I was discovering, tasted nothing like I'd expected. 3 months later, I stood in the kitchen of my new penthouse, watching my daughter Sophia arrange her breakfast precisely the way she liked it, strawberries in a perfect line, toast cut into triangles, orange juice in her favorite princess cup. The morning sun streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating a life that had been rebuilt from the ashes of betrayal. Mommy, can we video call Daddy today? Sophia asked, looking up at me with Marcus's dark eyes but thankfully, my determined chin. Of course, sweetheart. After school, like always. The supervised video calls had become routine. Marcus, now working as a sales associate at an electronics store in Cleveland, his mother had moved there to escape the whispers, spoke to Sophia twice a week for exactly 30 minutes. The conversations were monitored, recorded, and strictly limited to discussions about her schoolwork, her friends, and her activities. He never asked about me anymore. The legal documents had been very clear about that. Is Aunt Elena coming to my birthday party next week? Sophia asked, climbing down from her chair to pack her school bag. She wouldn't miss it. And Uncle David said he's bringing that robot kit you wanted. David Park had become more than my COO over these months. He'd become family, the kind you choose rather than inherit. When I'd finally revealed my complete story to him, his response had been characteristic: about time you stopped protecting people who didn't deserve it. My phone buzzed with the morning briefing from my executive assistant. Meridian Digital's quarterly numbers were the strongest in company history. Without Marcus's sabotage and my constant worry about maintaining dual identities, productivity had soared. We'd landed 3 major contracts in the past month alone. More importantly, the company culture had transformed. When I'd finally addressed the entire staff as myself, not as a mysterious consultant but as their CEO, the response had been overwhelmingly positive. Several employees had approached me privately to share their own stories of feeling undervalued or overlooked. We'd implemented new mentorship programs, anonymous feedback systems, and promotion tracks based on merit rather than office politics. The company I'd built in secret was finally becoming the company I'd always envisioned. "Mommy, you look pretty today," Sophia said, adjusting my pearl necklace with careful fingers. I knelt to her level, smoothing her dark hair. "Thank you, baby. Are you excited about school?" Mrs. Peterson said, "We're learning about successful women today. Can I tell them about you?" My heart clenched with pride and protectiveness in equal measure. "What would you like to tell them?" "That my mommy built a big company and helps lots of people have jobs. And that she's really smart and really strong. You can tell them whatever makes you proud, sweetheart." As I drove Sophia to her new school, a progressive institution that emphasized critical thinking over social status, I reflected on the unexpected gifts that had emerged from the wreckage of my marriage. First, there was honesty. For the first time in my adult life, I was living as completely myself. No hidden identities, no financial facades, no pretending to be less than I was. The relief was extraordinary. Second, there was clarity about relationships. Elena had stepped into the void left by our mother's betrayal, becoming not just a sister but a true partner in raising Sophia. David and his wife Sarah had become chosen family. Even Detective Torres had remained in touch, occasionally consulting with me on corporate fraud cases. Third, there was purpose. Building wealth in secret had been about survival and protection. Building it openly was about legacy and impact. My phone rang as I pulled into the school parking lot. Elena's name appeared on the screen. "Good morning, favorite sister," I answered. "Your only sister," she replied, laughing. "I'm calling with news. Good news and complicated news. Start with good. The good news is that Mom's employment application was approved. She starts Monday as a customer service representative at the department store." I felt a complex mix of emotions. Relief that my mother was finally working to support herself, sadness that our relationship had come to this, and a small, stubborn hope that meaningful work might help her rediscover her dignity. "And the complicated news? She asked me to ask you if she could attend Sophia's birthday party." I watched my daughter skip up the steps to her school, backpack bouncing, completely unaware of the adult complications swirling around her young life. "What do you think?" I asked Elena. "I think she's learned some hard lessons over the past 3 months. I also think she genuinely misses Sophia. But ultimately, it's your decision." After dropping Sophia off, I drove not to my office but to a small cafe in Brooklyn where I'd arranged to meet someone I never thought I'd see again. Jennifer Walsh sat in a corner booth, looking nervous but determined. She'd been Marcus's assistant at Meridian Digital, the one who'd cried when she learned about his betrayal. She'd also been the one who'd asked to speak with me privately after his termination. "Ms. Chen," she stood as I approached. "Thank you for meeting me. Please, call me Isabella. And thank you for reaching out." We settled into the booth, and Jennifer immediately pulled out a manila folder. "I've been struggling with whether to share this information," she began. "But I finally decided you deserve to know the full truth." She opened the folder, revealing printed emails and documents I'd never seen before. Marcus wasn't just sharing information with Titan Strategic. He was also embezzling from the company. Small amounts, but consistent. He'd been doing it for almost 2 years. I scanned the documents, my forensic accounting experience automatically calculating the totals. Nearly $85,000 had been siphoned through fake vendor payments and inflated expense reports. "Why didn't you report this earlier?" Jennifer's face reddened. "Because I was in love with him. And because he told me his wife was financially controlling. That she kept him on an allowance despite making good money with her consulting work." The irony was staggering. Marcus had been stealing from the company I owned to supplement the lifestyle I was secretly funding. He said he needed the money to buy her nice things, to take her on vacations, to provide for their daughter the way a real man should. I looked up from the documents. And you believed him? I wanted to believe him. He was charming, attentive. He made me feel important. Jennifer wiped her eyes. I realized now that he was just using me to cover his tracks. I studied the young woman across from me. She couldn't be more than 25, probably fresh out of college when Marcus hired her. Another victim of his manipulation. Jennifer, why are you showing me this now? Because after he was fired, I started thinking about all the things that never made sense. The expensive watch he wore but claimed his wife bought on sale. The stories about her struggling business while they lived in a house worth millions. The way he talked about money, like someone who'd never actually had to earn it. She leaned forward earnestly. And because I realized that if he lied about everything else, he probably lied about you too. I closed the folder, making a decision. That surprised me. Jennifer, I'd like to offer you a position in our internal audit department. We need someone who understands how financial manipulation works, and you've clearly learned to spot the signs. Her eyes widened. After what I helped him do, you were manipulated by someone who was very good at manipulation. That doesn't make you complicit, it makes you experienced. The question is whether you've learned from that experience. I have. I definitely have. Later that afternoon, I stood in my office reviewing the quarterly reports when David knocked on my door. The Singapore deal is officially signed, he announced, carrying a bottle of champagne. Biggest contract in company history. The one Marcus nearly destroyed. The very same. Turns out, removing the sabotage was all we needed to close it. I accepted a glass of champagne, but my mind was elsewhere. David, I need to ask you something. Do you think I'm becoming like them? Like who? Marcus and my mother. Calculating, manipulative, willing to destroy people who cross me. David set down his glass and looked at me seriously. Isabella, what you did wasn't about destroying people. It was about protecting yourself and your daughter from people who were actively trying to harm you. But I enjoyed it. The planning, the reveal, watching them realize how completely they'd been outplayed. Of course you enjoyed it. You're human. But notice what you did after the satisfaction wore off. You rebuilt your company culture, you're providing for Sophia's future. You're even helping your mother find work despite everything she did. He moved to the window, looking out at the city. Marcus and Vivian destroyed things for personal gain. You destroyed their ability to keep destroying things. There's a difference. That evening, as I tucked Sophia into bed in our new home, she asked the question I'd been dreading. Mommy, why doesn't Grandma Vivian come to see me anymore? I sat on the edge of her bed, choosing my words carefully. Sometimes adults make mistakes that hurt the people they love. Grandma made some choices that weren't kind to our family. Is that why Daddy doesn't live with us anymore? Yes, sweetheart. Daddy made some choices that meant we couldn't be a family the way we were before. Sophia was quiet for a moment, processing this with the remarkable resilience of childhood. But we're still a family, right? You and me and Aunt Elena and Uncle David. We're absolutely still a family. Just a different shape than before. I like our new shape, she said, snuggling into her pillow. It feels safer. 6 months after the confrontation that ended my marriage, I received an unexpected letter. Not an email or text, but an actual handwritten letter on expensive stationery. Isabella, I know I have no right to contact you, and I understand if you don't read this. But I needed you to know that I finally understand what I destroyed. Working at the department store has taught me something I never learned in all my years of privilege, the value of earning what you have. Every day, I serve customers who work hard for modest paychecks, and I realize how insulated I've been from that reality. I also realized that while I was judging you for working too much, you were actually creating something extraordinary. The articles about Meridian Digital's expansion, the awards you've won, the jobs you've created, I'm proud of you, even though I have no right to be. I know I can never undo what I did to our family. I know I threw away the most important relationship in my life for something that was ultimately meaningless. Marcus was just a fantasy, a way to feel young and desired again. You were real, and I lost you. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even deserve consideration. But I want you to know that not a day passes that I don't regret my choices. If you ever think Sophia might benefit from having her grandmother in her life again, I will earn that privilege properly. No shortcuts, no manipulation, no hidden agendas. With love and regret, Mommy read the letter 3 times, feeling the complex tangle of emotions I'd been carrying for months. Anger, sadness, disappointment, and underneath it all, a stubborn thread of love that even betrayal couldn't completely sever. I made a decision that would have surprised the vengeful woman I'd been 6 months earlier. I picked up my phone and called Elena. I need you to plan a very small addition to Sophia's birthday party. 1 year later, I stood on the stage at the annual Women in Business Awards, accepting recognition as Entrepreneur of the Year. In the audience, Sophia sat in the front row. Next to Elena, wearing a dress she'd picked out herself and a smile that could power cities. Nearby, but maintaining respectful distance, sat my mother. She'd been attending these events for 6 months now, slowly rebuilding her relationship with her granddaughter through supervised visits and carefully earned trust. We weren't close, might never be close again, but we were learning to coexist. In Sophia's world. This award, I said into the microphone, represents more than business success. It represents the power of authenticity, the strength that comes from living openly as yourself, and the importance of building something that outlasts any individual relationship. I looked directly at Sophia, who was beaming with pride. It also represents the next generation of women who will grow up believing they can achieve anything, because they'll never know a world where powerful women are unusual. After the ceremony, as we walked to the car, Sophia slipped her hand into mine. Mommy, are you famous now? I'm successful, sweetheart. There's a difference. What's the difference? I thought about Marcus, who'd craved fame and recognition. About my mother, who'd valued appearances over substance. About the woman I'd been, hiding her achievements to protect others' egos. Famous means lots of people know your name. Successful means you've built something that makes the world better. Then I want to be successful like you. You can be anything you want to be, Sophia. And you'll never have to hide it or apologize for it. As we drove home through the city I'd conquered, I reflected on the unexpected journey from betrayal to triumph. I'd lost a husband and a mother, but I'd gained something infinitely more valuable, the freedom to live completely as myself. The silent partner had finally stepped into the light, and the view was extraordinary. 18 months after Marcus and my mother signed those legal documents, I received news that brought the story full circle. Marcus had been arrested for embezzling from his new employer. Apparently, stealing had become a habit. The rehabilitation I'd hoped prison might provide would now be mandatory. My mother, meanwhile, had been promoted to assistant manager at the department store. She'd also started volunteering with a financial literacy program for women recovering from domestic abuse. When I'd asked her why, she'd said simply, "Because I understand how dangerous it is to depend on someone else for your survival." Sophia, now 7, had started showing an interest in coding. Elena had enrolled her in a weekend program where she was building her first website, a virtual pet adoption center that she hoped would help real animals find homes. "Mommy," she'd said the previous weekend, "I want to make something that helps others, like you do." The empire I'd built in secret had become a legacy I was proud to share openly. But more than that, I'd built something that would outlast any betrayal, any disappointment, any challenge that life might bring. I'd built a life worth living authentically. As I tucked Sophia into bed that night, she asked one final question. "Mommy, do you ever miss Daddy?" I considered this carefully. Did I miss Marcus? No. Did I miss the idea of the family we might have been? Sometimes. I miss the good parts of our life together, I told her honestly. But I don't miss pretending to be someone I wasn't. I like who you really are, she said sleepily. I do too, sweetheart. I finally do too. And in that moment, I realized that revenge had never been the point. Justice had been the point. Truth had been the point. Building a life worthy of the woman I'd always been, that had been the point all along. The silent partner was silent no more, and the future had never looked brighter. The end. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to like, subscribe and turn on the notification bell, so you don't miss any upload from us.